Welcome to the magical realm of seeking the light of 1,000 suns. Join us on this journey as we delve into the mystical world of eclectic witchcraft. Brought to you by Maya Sky Rika and Gia Storm. Together we share our eclectic tips and tricks with listeners at any stage in their chosen magical path. Get ready for engaging discussions, diverse knowledge, and a community that embraces the sparks of magic in your life. Please follow and share our content so we can reach as many like minds as possible. Don't forget to check out our enriching extras available on our Facebook page. The links are in the description, or you can go to www.seekingthelight of 1000suns.com. May blessings illuminate your path on your journey with us, and thank you for listening. Welcome to another episode of Seeking the Light of 1,000 Suns. We have special guest John Milor today, and with the hot topics going around, we thought this would be a fun subject to talk about. John is an author and a screenwriter, and his latest book is Christian ufology. John, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
This book, Christian ufology, is sort of two parts. The Christian part is sort of delayed reaction for me in life. The ufology part is my earlier life, but when I was very young, I was very into the paranormal and UFO type stuff, but I also have Christian influences in my family. My great grandparents, my great grandfather was an evangelist for like 30 years, and my great grandmother got me first interested actually in the paranormal, which is interesting because this woman lived, breathed, ate, drank God. Everything about God. They were consumed with God from the Bible Belt. Traveled to the United States preaching the gospel through the Great Depression, yet she saw a UFO when she was a little girl. And she announced this to the family, and I was 5 years old when she made the announcement. She said, "I don't care what people think, those things are real." So, her and her sister saw this UFO, broad daylight, plains of Kentucky. And at that time, they had never even seen a vehicle before. They had a wagon, and they lived out in the middle of nowhere. So they had no frame of reference. And she and her sister saw a UFO. And so she recounted this story to the family back in 1975 when I was 5 years old, and I was shocked. I didn't even know a whole lot about it. My mom used the idea of Star Trek. We watched Star Trek. We were big Trekkies. She's like, that's probably a lot more real than most people think. For me, that made sense. And so the idea that Jesus and the Bible are real, that connected with Grandma. She had this astounding faith. She even said she had a visitation of Jesus himself, who healed her of paralysis at one point. Those two realities, she didn't even bother to need to connect the dots. They were just real. This ETs are obviously part of God's creation. That was just sort of her simple opinion about it. But for me, at a young age, I wasn't like a solid Christian. And I went off. I joined the Army. I was in Army active duty for 3 years, went to the Panamanian conflict, and in the jungle of Panama, I encountered an otherworldly being, a glowing ball of light. I actually communicated with it. It telepathically transmitted its location to me, so I could feel it moving around even when I couldn't see it or hear it. I knew where it was. And it was this glowing ball of light about the size of a soccer ball, and it flash on and off. It made no noise. I could not see it with night vision goggles. Only saw it when it flashed on. There was somebody else with me when this happened. Other people out in the jungle saw it. At 2 different outposts, they saw it. So that was like the grand finality of all of the cool paranormal things that I researched and read about in my life up to that point. And then when I experienced that, I was like, wow, I felt like I was there with Captain Kirk, first contact, right? I even introduced myself to it. And then it was like processing as I was talking to it. And then I felt it get into my head. So wow. Very trippy. Yeah, very trippy encounter. So I got out of the Army. A couple years went by. I went back into the military and I climbed up through the ranks. And yeah, they probably thought I was a bit of an odd duck because they knew that, in the Army, I was very much didn't sync with the infantry guns that I was with. I was an M60 gunner, right? So barbarian type dudes out in the trenches and stuff, in the jungle with the bugs, eating bugs and doing all that. And that kind of jives with the barbarian side of my nature. But I also had this intellectual side that totally was not on the same sheet of music with any of those guys. And out of my whole company, I formed a bond with a couple guys that we would play Dungeons and Dragons together. And then I memorized all the Dungeons and Dragons books, all the creatures and stuff in there. And I think that thing that I saw in the jungle might have been a will-o'-the-wisp. But anyways, after I got out of the Army, I had this encounter with God. It was like so amazing and undeniable. I almost like don't really have what you could call faith. It's more like I know. I can't even deny it. It's like dumb for me to like think that God is not real and that Jesus did not die on a cross for me and those things. I literally heard Jesus spoke his name in my ear when I asked who that was visiting me in my dream. It was so profound, I changed overnight, like Ebenezer Scrooge waking up on Christmas Day. I was a completely different person. Everybody was kind of tripping out when they saw me after that. And I changed a lot of the things that I was doing. But I was a walking encyclopedia of the paranormal at that time. But then I thought, okay, now I got to read the Bible. No kidding. I picked up the Bible, started reading it, and then I'm seeing all this paranormal stuff on almost every page. And it shocked me. And before I knew it, I'm writing notes in the columns, writing notes and notebooks and stuff, filling up notebooks. And I had a whole book on me before I realized it. And my first book was Aliens in the Bible, a biblical perspective of supernatural entities, realms of existence, and phenomenon. And I crossed the dots with all this paranormal stuff I'm seeing all over in the Bible. So I see astral projection, I see ETs, I see ghosts, I see cryptids. Like, actually, the Bible tells you where cryptids come from. Genesis chapter 6. I had no idea the Bible was that paranormal. It's actually the paranormal rule book. And that first book that I wrote was kind of like very wide scope, all this paranormal stuff. But then over the years, I studied more and more. And then that opened the door to communication with a lot of different people that have been abducted by aliens and call on the name of Jesus. And the aliens deposit them back on Earth and they get away. So my earlier perception was that ETs are basically bad. They're demons, whatever. That's a common perception. And I wrote, 5 years went by and I come to realize that not all ETs are bad, that there's another side to this. The Bible actually talks about good guys. Ezekiel chapter 1 and 10, for example, that is an ET spaceship. Elijah was abducted. Genesis, Ezekiel, 2 Kings 2:11, and he was taken in broad daylight, abducted, tractor beam and everything, right? Those were good guys. So I'm like, there's good guys too. Angels are faithful and fallen. They're both, right? So they're not all bad. And as my perception opened up, I wrote Aliens and the Antichrist, and I brought it back together, more in focus. And then years after that, I did more and more research. And in 2020, with the disclosure of the Navy coming out and saying, okay, all this stuff that we said, it's weather balloons and all that, not true. Truth is, we don't know what it is. So they finally came clean, did a complete 180 over decades of denial. So I thought, And I also heard that there's people in the Pentagon freaking out. They're Christians. They don't understand how to interpret this. They're read into the file and they're like having a crisis of faith. And I'm like, you don't need to. The Bible is there. It tells you everything you need to know about this reality. You can know even more than they know on the Ancient Aliens show. So I wrote Christian ufology so they can understand UFOs within a Christian context, that they are real. The ETs are real, and God is real. Jesus is real. It's all real at the same time. And it all makes a lot more sense that way.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. And thank you for your service. I know that the hot topic right now is all of the drones that are being seen everywhere. And I was even seeing a live today of the one that had crashed in Hilsboro, New Jersey. So I thought it would be really
wow.
That would be really cool to talk about some of this stuff.
That one I haven't even heard about. So people swarm in on it, and did the government swarm in and say, can't, nobody cross this line? Or did they actually get some pictures of it and leak it to the media and actually say, okay, what kind of drone it is, what country they think it comes from, anything like that? Everything I've been hearing is like nobody knows anything.
So I was watching a live where someone was in the Walmart parking lot that they show a lot of the news clips on right now. He was in the Lowe's parking lot across from where it crashed, and there were fire trucks, SWAT team, amphibious vehicle, hazmat, bomb squad. I mean, so supposedly what happened was at midnight, New Jersey time, this drone crashed. Neighboring people heard it. I did see some clips of what it looked like. I don't know if they're still available to see. And I saw clips of the police in a chopper trying to see it in the dark from above.
Okay.
So anyways, I'm watching this live, and they were giving us the details of all the people there. I got to see all the news people that were, standing out front and doing their little breaking news moments and stuff like that. But the few interesting things is when he was trying to get closer to do filming, the police told him he needed to step back. He needed to get out of there. Story found later confirmed that the FBI gave the police the duty to keep people out of the area. And so supposedly for hours this morning, they were back there in the woods where nobody could see them. They had vehicles parked in the way of sight and everything like that. And then they all left after, all this time. And, when people had asked them at the site there if they found anything, the police would say, I can't comment on that.
SF312 non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, I can't comment on that. And then a little while later, when people were asking police, they were saying, any questions, you have to call the FBI. And when you call the FBI and ask questions, then the FBI says, we're doing an investigation. We're looking into it. Here's what I find really interesting. Of all the accounts from the other people around that area from when it had happened, well, one thing that happened was the guy that was on the live was still talking, and then it just ended in the middle of him talking. And I thought, well, okay, it said live ended. Okay, maybe he accidentally hit a button or something. Maybe they have a timeout because he was on for hours. I don't know. Okay, so I can't really say what happened, why it just ended in mid-sentence, but I find it very, very interesting that the guy that was on the live got surprise interviewed by news crew while he was filming live. And they basically started asking him questions. He turned around while he was still doing this live on the phone, and the camera was already faced at him recording. They didn't even ask permission or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And none of that was put on the news, on their channels on the internet. So
yeah, that's sanitizing it. Very suspicious.
Specifically, the news station specifically that was there that interviewed him was 12 News, New Jersey. They never posted it. But about 5 hours later, they put out something on their news station without the pre-stuff. Like, the pre-stuff that was happening did not get posted. They put out there that there was nothing uncovered. It was a big old nada. There's not. Oh
yeah. We sure believe that.
And
oh wow. I mean, they denied that Area 51 even existed for like 50 years.
Right.
Some ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, it didn't legally exist. People were getting sick with cancer and stuff, and they couldn't even file legal documentation against it because the place didn't technically exist. Yeah.
Well, there's other videos that show actually what they look like. But what I find really interesting is when they're taking video of what they look like, some of them will show how they affect streetlights when they're there and how they're affecting car radios, and how, like, I was watching one today where one was hovering and an entire parking lot of cars, all of their lights were blinking.
That makes me wonder if there's some real ones.
But
and our people can't stop it, so they're flooding the skies with our lame ones that you can hear with, like, they sound like Harley Davidson.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking.
That maybe there's some real ones and they can't stop the ETs. The ETs are like maybe wanting to push it, right? They want disclosure. They want to break into our society, be part of our society, which I'm predicting will eventually happen. And so they're trying to delay it and dilute it, right? Because when you can't stop a story and it comes out, then you can add a bunch of fake stories to it to make it so convoluted you don't know what's really going on.
That's
so
exactly what I think.
Populate the skies with a bunch of these fake ET craft that are hokey. And on the one hand, they're not like your average drone, right? They're huge. It's the size of a school bus. That's not like I got one in my backyard kind of thing. Nobody's got like that.
Yep.
Only the Predator drones here at our base up at Riverside have that, right? Those are the Predator drones. Those things are pretty big. They fly like regular airplane. They have wings that, they don't look like saucers.
Okay.
They fly about 70 miles an hour and they do make a lot of noise. Regarding the ET thing, I think it's interesting because it does have all eyes focused upward, and the speculation about ETs and stuff, it's just bringing it into public eye a lot more. In 2020, the things that they were seeing, Tic Tac and stuff, that was the Navy that released that. So this goes back to the 40s when we were gaslighting. Our government was gaslighting, saying this is weather balloons, this is temperature inversion, and all this goofy stuff. And then even dating back to the late 80s, I believe that they came out with Operation Mogul, and they declassified that. They showed this high-tech weather balloon with this dummies that crashed or something. And they made it kind of look like a UFO type thing with crash dummies in it or something. They said, this is what they actually saw at Roswell, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think anybody really bought that either. But it's funny that it came up again after 40 something years. And then now, in 2015, our aircraft carriers were getting buzzed by these objects that were flying out of the ocean. They could go 6 times faster than a nuclear submarine under the ocean, tracked on our radar. And then they come up out of the ocean, they blast off into outer space. They can do right angles at ridiculous speeds that if it either has to be a drone, which to even do that kind of maneuver, how does the technology itself not just get crushed or destroyed? Because it's ridiculous kind of pressure that this object is undergoing, right? To have an engine to be able to do a right angle at like over 1,000 miles an hour it's defying physics. It doesn't generate heat. They don't have aerodynamics. They're violating all these known laws of physics. So the technology is so far beyond us. Marco Rubio even said he hopes that they're ET, because if China or Russia has this kind of technology, it doesn't make any sense, because they would basically be in charge of the world right now if they did. Hands down, wouldn't be any contest, nothing about it. They would just own us. They almost kind of do own us, but there would be no talk about tariffs or anything. They just wouldn't put up with it if they had that kind of technology, So I don't think they do. I think that these really are that advanced. Now, I've heard stories that these Tic Tacs and stuff, some of it's reverse engineered, so it wouldn't be quite as advanced as the ET stuff. It would be what we managed to figure out. So maybe it could do some pretty amazing stuff, but it begs the question, why would we take our own technology and endanger our own pilots flying these things around? That's what brought the whole thing to light. It was safety violations, one after another. People were almost getting killed. In a few instances, they say that some pilots did get killed. And whistleblower after whistleblower was coming forward until it finally reached Congress. Then they came out with the Whistleblower Act, and that's where we are now. So now they're questioning some of these whistleblowers because the information is flooding it. So that's kind of how military disinformation works. They do if they can't put a cap on the whistleblowing, then they flood the whistleblowing with fake accounts, so you can't tell what's real and what's not. So there's probably real stuff mixed in there, but some of it can maybe go out in left field, and it dilutes it so bad that people are left like a WikiLeaks, right? WikiLeaks was full of a bunch of junk data. They couldn't stop it, so they flooded it with garbage. So you have to weed through it, and of course you can use reasoning, and you could debunk a lot what you can, and then there'll be a category of data that, like truth, it will be consistent, internally consistent, and the dots will connect and it will make sense. And it'll have logic that goes with it. So you could still do a lot more with too much information than with a complete media blackout. That's where we're at right now. But the cool thing is with the Bible, what I found is that we have the book that shows you behind the scenes in the spiritual realm. It explains it. If you understand it from a scientific perspective and you add that in, and you have that kind of lens on, it's more of a sci-fi type way of looking at the Bible, and reading an account like Genesis, reading an account like Ezekiel chapter 1 and 10, where he sees a UFO. He describes it from top-down view and then a side view. He describes wings that are connected at the end and they don't flap. That's a saucer if you're looking at it from the side. From the top, it's circles within circles, a wheel within wheel. And then the lights and the windows that would be within the paneling, that's eyes in the spokes. So it makes perfect sense if you're looking at this angelic chariot as being advanced technology that is a saucer-shaped thing that comes down, and it's like moving around. It moves sideways, so you see it on the side, and then you see it from the top down, and it's just sort of all over. Then he even describes it that has these landing gears that come out, and it lands. And then he interfaces with these angels, and then they take him up. And you combine that with other accounts like 2 Kings 2:11. You had Old Testament prophet Elijah walking along with Elijah, and this angelic chariot comes down and pulls him right off the ground in like a tractor beam. And this wasn't like a dream, and he's using symbolic language like in Daniel or Revelation. This is more like, we were walking along one day and my buddy was whipped up off the ground and taken off, and we never saw him again. He went to heaven. That was an abduction. That was an ET abduction. It was an angel abduction. They are the same thing. And that's one of the areas where I differ from both ancient astronauts and a lot of Christians. It's more of a scientific approach. We live in a multidimensional universe. Science, modern quantum physics has, they believe that they're at 13 different dimensions now with M theory, was string theory. So they keep coming out with these new theories because that's what the math is telling them. And it's fascinating that we're finally there, and we're finally starting to see what the Bible has pointed out all along, that there's a civilization within the earth in a lower dimension. And there's a civilization surrounding the planet Earth in a higher dimension. That's first heaven. Second heaven is described in the Bible. Heaven itself is a plural word. And out of the 657 references to it in the Bible, the bulk of those are plural, and they refer to the second heaven. It is defined in Genesis 1:14, the abode of the sun and the moon and the stars. That's outer space. The word star is in many places synonymous with angel. And the books that refer to the angels, and it goes back and forth, and it says God held the 7 stars, and then it tells you that they're angels that he's talking about. So angels are used synonymously with stars. Job 38, another prime example of that. And it's because the angels are from the stars. They're from the heavens, with an S, plural. Second heaven. We live in a multidimensional universe. Every planet is a multidimensional construct, multiple layers of existence. If you have the ability, if you change the vibrational frequency of your molecular structure and you go higher, then you would perceive the higher realms of higher glory. If you lowered it, you would perceive the lower realms of lower glory. If you could lower it, you would discover yourself in the sky of a smaller planet. It's a pretty wretched place. That's hell. And that's how the Bible describes it. And all these visions, and they make so much more sense when you understand that. The account of the angelic encounter with Daniel in the Old Testament reads like that Gabriel flew from God's throne, which is glorified planet in the northern hemisphere of the universe. 3 references in the Bible to that. That's the third heaven. It's God's glorified planet where he has his throne. He went through the second heaven to get here and lowered his dimensional variation, and then had to penetrate first heaven of earth to get down to this dimension to speak with Daniel. Penetrating that first heaven, he was blocked by a demonic being, a fallen angel known as the Prince of Persia, who detained him 21 days there. So, and then he had to get help from the Archangel Michael to fight him, get through. And then to leave, he had to fight again, because remember, it's the shell that surrounds the planet. So he had to fight to get off of this planet to get back to God. So that he had to go through all of that to complete this mission. So this structure of the universe being multidimensional is very clearly defined and outlined, and there's many scriptures that refer to it, and you can clearly see it. And I just think it's fascinating that by studying UFOs and stuff and reading the Bible, that I was able to see all of these things. Because when I first came across this, I was really into UFOs and studying all this paranormal stuff. But then I had my encounter with God where I came to the realization, extreme epiphany, that Jesus is real. He's very personal. He even visits people in person. And he does these dramatic things sometimes. He will even have physical manifestations sometimes. He did that with my great-grandmother. She saw him in a hospital, and he cured her paralysis instantly. She almost died from a stroke. And the left side of her body, she couldn't move, she couldn't walk, she couldn't talk. And Jesus showed up in her hospital room, boom, healed, instant. And then Jesus came to me when I was 21 years old. But up until that time, I'd been immersed in paranormal stuff and investigating. I did everything under the sun. I did ghost hunting. I tried channeling. Don't go there. You don't want to do that. I mess with Ouija boards and read tarot cards, interpreted dreams, astral projection, you name it. When I was a little kid, I had basically this entire encyclopedic set of paranormal books memorized. By the time I was like maybe 13, I could just quote stuff to you about psychometry and the most obscure paranormal stuff. So I was extremely into all this spiritual mysteries of the unknown kind of things. And then I had my encounter with God. So from that, I came away from it like I could set all this paranormal stuff aside. I'm going to just read the Bible and believe it for what it says. And then maybe some of that other stuff is kind of true, but I have to understand it from a biblical context. And I came away from that believing in ETs even more because of what I read in the Bible, starting in the book of Genesis. And it was like, it floored me. I was shocked to see so many paranormal things in the Bible. But the ET presence, even before humanity existed, and then interwoven into God's plan from the beginning, and how involved they are. And it includes angels, but alien is actually a term that refers to a much larger scope of species. It's not just angels. It refers to all the beings under the angels as well. Mortals like us, or pseudo-immortals, as Adam and Eve were before they sinned. They weren't going to die so long as they ate from the tree of life. And I think that there's some good guys out there in the cosmos that are in that category too. They're not completely immortal like an angel, but they're not bad. They haven't even sinned. I believe that they have bodies. They just change their molecular variation to be here. But then they can like walk through walls and fly and stuff like that. So it confuses people and they think they're non-physical, but they are physical. It's just a higher level of matter. It vibrates at a higher frequency. Just like, I think the spirit body is a type of matter. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be able to affect electrical devices and such. It is interfacing with matter and it manipulates matter. So it is a type of matter itself. I would call it exotic matter. But it is a body nonetheless, and it is composed of a physical type of molecular structure. Just vibrates at a higher frequency. And beings that are what we call demons, they're actually deceased Nephilim. They're the ghosts of Nephilim. The Bible even tells you the word Raphaim translates in Hebrew as both shades and spirits and giants. So that's another confusion. And Christians will say that ETs are demons, and that no, a demon is the ghost of a Nephilim, and they're not a physical being. They're terrestrial also. They're, earthbound beings, whereas ETs can go out into the heavens. So there's just a lot of different things that I cover in my book, Christian Ufology, and other books that I've written that go over all these terms. And I have over 750 scriptures that I reference, connecting the dots, how it's possible to be a Christian and also believe in ETs, that they are real, they're physical beings, they're from other worlds, and that they are also from other worlds in different dimensions. So the heavens are vast and huge. Not only are there over 70-something septillion stars with orbiting planets out there, that is all multidimensional on top of it. So the amount of life that's out there, to say that this is the only planet with life is, I think, an insane underestimation of the vastness of the cosmos and God's creation. Look at the amount of life that's on this planet. I mean, we have millions of species on this planet. Why we got to limit that to one planet? I don't think he does. I think the heavens, and then the Bible's even clear that the heavens are populated with life. I believe that the heavens have life, that there's life in outer space, because the Bible tells me. Not just because I knew it intuitively and I always felt it and I always sensed it, but because the Bible says it too. When you actually look at the words, you research it, you dig into the Greek, the Hebrew, the Aramaic, the Latin, it all comes to light. It makes a lot of sense. So, anybody who wants any of my books, my website is my author website, johnmilor.com, but I also have book websites that are the same title as my books, christianufology.net, aliensandthebible.com, aliensandtheantichrist.com, and thestrongdelusion.net. So that's 4 of my books of this genre. And if you go to my website, I put my any of those websites, they link to my author website, and I have my email address on there, jmilor@yahoo.com. So if you can't afford to buy a book, but you want to read it, just email me. And I just like to chat with people. You know, if you had any questions or whatever, I always answer my emails, and I will email you free copies of my books. Any book you want. I do ask that you give me a review on Amazon, but, you know, it's not like I can enforce that or anything. So, honor system. But I stopped trying to make money at selling these books a long time ago, and I'm like kind of done with that. Not that I would frown if anybody want to buy one, but that's not why I'm doing it. I want to get the word out. I want people to know what's going to happen.
Thank you so much for joining us, John. It has been a really fun time talking about these things. And it's really interesting to chat with you when, you know, there's so many things that we align with for ideas on the paranormal and ETs. I'd like to thank our listeners also for joining us today. If you're interested in John's predictions, please go to part 2 of UFOs in the Bible. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We also, from time to time, have podcast extras on our Facebook group, seekingthelightof1000suns.com. And our web address is www.seekingthelightofA1000suns.com. Thank you and blessed be.